Hi, I am Dr. Campbell. Today I wanted to talk about how schools can avoid civil rights complaints. Now, in a recent article, the Hillsborough Public Schools have developed a plan to respond to several civil rights complaints. The complaints are from parents and civil rights activists who believe that the school district could better serve their children and youth. Public schools will need to better prepare in the area of school discipline processing to avoid the pitfalls associated with civil rights complaints. Now, according to the article, the Hillsborough Public Schools has responded to civil rights complaints by developing a plan to reduce suspensions that appear to be racially motivated. Many of the civil rights complaints against the school district are filed by individual parents, even though a complaint can be filed online by almost any concerned individual. Many of the civil rights complaints against schools is centered on school discipline. In 2014, the United States Department of Education Office for Civil Rights received a record high 9,989 complaints from people who felt they or others had been discriminated against by a public school or other organizations that receive funding from the education department. This places schools in a different predicament because they will have to prepare to remain under the racism radar. One way for schools to better prepare for civil rights complaints is to train teachers on the verbal and nonverbal differences that can cause civil rights complaints. So, what are some of the verbal communication differences that can lead to civil rights complaints? Black verbal communication styles can influence teacher-student classroom relationships. White Americans' unfamiliarity with the black communication style results in a misunderstanding by the American mainstream. For example, blacks not only debate the idea, they also debate the person, while whites debate the idea rather than the person debating the idea. Blacks will often probe behind a statement to determine where a person is coming from in order to clarify the meaning and value of a particular behavior or attitude. Black students contrast white middle-class communication when they speak over others' voices and repeat communication until they are responded to or until they have someone's attention. In the black community, spontaneity in conversation is an acceptable component of communication. Other races perceive interrupting another speaker in a conversation as rude. In the black community, the speaker and the audience are often interchangeable. Black communities accept the approach that their children use by interrupting others or speaking out of turn, which is an unacceptable school practice, and teachers view this behavior as disruptive and inappropriate. Anglo-Americans place high value on allowing one person at a time to speak to indicate respect for an individual. And so what are some of the nonverbal communication differences that can lead to civil rights complaints? Nonverbal classroom communication is more important than verbal classroom communication behavior. Nonverbal communication contributes significantly to communicative interpersonal interactions when compared to verbal communication. Nonverbal communication has greater significance than verbal communication that results from nonverbal communication having a greater impact in, number one, determining interpersonal context meaning, number two, when accurately determining feelings and emotions, number three, when revealing meanings and intentions that are deception and distortion free, number four, when attaining high quality communications that represent a much more effective communication medium, number five, represent a more suitable means of communication when compared to verbal communication. One example of how nonverbal behavior impacts the relationships between teachers and students that can lead to civil rights complaints is standing distance. Colleges teach teachers to ensure there is a distance between themselves and the students so the teacher can maintain discipline in the classroom. The problem surfaces as different standing distance requirements. For example, European Americans are more likely to have close social distance with Mexican Americans when compared to blacks, and prefer to keep their personal space at arm's length. Hispanic Americans stand close to or side by side instead of face to face when talking to another person. Hispanic Americans stand 6 to 8 inches within an arm's length when talking to another person. Latino Americans prefer closer standing distances when compared to North Americans. Blacks are more likely to touch each other in a conversation when compared to whites. Individuals who perceive a proximity violator as someone who will provide them with a negative reward will react negatively when the proximity violator moves closer. Maintaining the appropriate or comfortable proximity is associated with a positive effect, friendship, and attraction, which has a direct impact on school discipline. Even though the differences in nonverbal and verbal and nonverbal communication in this article are not exhaustive, schools can monitor teacher behavior to ensure that they remain under the radar, and that is under the racism radar, by utilizing the Accelerate Racism formula. This is Dr. Campbell. You can read about this entire article as well as other information that's beneficial at www.positiveracialrelationships.com. If you want to talk about it, you can call me on my direct line at 856-566-3267. Have a great day, and thank you very much.
Yeah. Be sure to check out positiveracialrelationships.com. Check it. Look, pull your pencils out, class is in session. Let's focus on loving our neighbor without a question. Visit positiveracialrelationships.com. Leading classrooms together like a marriage bond. Kick racism out, that ain't what life's about. For more information, check the website out.